Hey, so today I thought I'd upload a video on how I draw my eyes, and the reason I did this is because it's kind of my, iconic doodle. I do it on everything, and I thought that I'd show you guys how I do it. So these are what you're gonna need. And if you want a kneaded eraser. And the most important is a pencil. So that's what we're gonna need just to do this. But I'm gonna tell you that honestly, the gray marker is optional if you want. You can just draw it on newspaper because I only used it because I just wanted to have my highlights pop. So right now I'm taking the marker and I'm using the, whatever it's called, that nib, the one that I showed you. And I'm just gonna make a little background because it's gonna be a small kind of drawing. And now I'm using my pencil. Doesn't really matter what pencil, literally any pencil would work. I'm just using a mechanical and I'm kind of doing the outline, and it's just a little half crescent shape, and just kind of lightly just sketch it. You don't have to push hard or anything. And I made a little out bump here for the tear duct. And I'm gonna add in a little line to separate the eyeball from the tear duct. Now we're starting on the crease of the eye. You can really do this any way you want. I just did it like this. And I add a little shading with my pencil, which isn't gonna matter. I don't know why I did that, because I'm just going to erase a little bit of it and then a little bit underneath, which kind of brings it to life. Now I'm working on the color part of the eye, which is the iris, and we're just kind of going in there. And I kind of started regretting this as soon as I was drawing this, because oh, I think I underestimated where I wanted it to be, and I didn't really decide on it quite well, but it looks okay. Now we are doing the eyelashes, and so how I did this is I just did little flicks, and I didn't want them to be like in your face, but what I tell myself is quality over quantity. So you don't want a bunch of little silly thin lashes right there. I like to draw them like clumped together so they're kind of thick and less of them. I think it looks nice. Now I'm adding in the pupil of the eye, just going softly, making a circle inside the other circle. And you can use any eraser for this. I just use my kneaded eraser because it takes off the layers quite nice, and you just kind of roll it up into whatever shape you want, and you can just roll it over there. It's pretty easy, and just takes off like the top layer of graphite. And if you were doing this with a regular eraser, just erase very, very lightly. You don't want to erase everything because you need that guideline when you're going over it with the other materials. Now I'm taking my alcohol-based marker. It honestly doesn't even have to be alcohol-based, you just have to be able to layer it. And I'm going to take it and go over where I want there to be more shadows. I'm putting it in the crease here. And then I'm going to put it right on the outline of the eye, because eventually I'm going to connect it to the eyelashes and kind of define those. As you can see, I'm doing little flicks. I'm kind of pressing harder at the base so it comes out thicker. And I'm using the brush nib, by the way, because it's a lot easier with that. But if you don't have that, that's okay. And so I'm kind of pushing harder at the base of them and then releasing. Now I'm just adding a little definition to under the eye. Now I'm taking my Pigma Micron pen, and I'm just lining the pupil to define it, because that's where we have that darkest color. And so I just fill it in with the same material, but you could do that with like a black marker because it'll take less time. And now I'm using the same pen and I am going around the iris to really define that circular shape. And if you don't have a pen like this, you can just use a regular black ballpoint pen. It really doesn't matter. Anything to get that thin defined line. Now I'm going to be using my colored pencils. And so basically what I have is a single, like your base color, whatever you want to be the color of the eye. I'm using just regular kind of purple color. I use Prismacolor color pencils. So we have a base color, and then we are also having a little bit of a lighter color, which we're going to be using to blend that with this darker color. So you have a base color, a lighter than the base, and then a darker than the base. So then at last we have our black and white color pencils, and so those are going to be used to add highlights and then add definition and shadows. Don't forget your pencil sharpener because you can make a big mistake if you have them unsharpened. So make sure to sharpen them. And if you want to even look like a real artist, just sharpen your pencils right on the paper, you know? You'll look really cool doing it because you know what you're doing. So after that, you just dump them in the trash and you kind of just swipe off the paper, you know? So people are watching you do this will be like, wow, why are you making a mess on your paper? And you're really like, well, because I'm cool and I want to. And so see, it doesn't even do anything. Just be careful, okay? Because you don't want to like rub the pigment in. So now I'm taking my base color and I'm just coloring the iris just around the pupil. And going very lightly using the side of the pencil. I don't want to color too hard because it will be harder to blend in my other colors. Now I'm using my darker color and I'm going along the top section, little part up there, like right under the top eyelid. And then I'm shading over there, and then I kind of go around the edge and really define that color so it can be seen very vibrantly. Alright, so now I'm going to be taking my lighter color and I will be using this on the kind of lower half of the iris, and what I'm doing is I'm just doing small circular motions to kind of blend in that defining color that we put on the edge, and we're kind of blending it into the darker color and the base. So it gets a kind of smooth look to it. We don't want sharp edges. And then I'm also taking my base again, and we are going over everything, or just the parts we want to be extra blended in. Now we're taking the white colored pencil. It's gotta be white because we're on a gray base, and if not, you can skip this step. So I'm gonna be filling in the whites of the eyes with this, but not every single part. So we're gonna start with the bottom half of the whites of the eyes because later we're gonna add shading to the top. So I'm just going in there, kind of pressing firmly but not too firm because we want to be able to blend. And then I'm taking my black, and we're only gonna add a little bit, just to the top edge of the eye. We don't want it to be too dark because I made that mistake with a previous drawing and it looked kind of funny, so we only add a little bit very lightly because it will turn gray. Now I'm just blending that in with my white color pencil. Now I'll be using a colorless blender, and so if you don't have this, you don't have to buy one, you don't have to get one. You can just use whatever you want, but I'd recommend like a Q-tip or your finger, but it might be a little hard to work in small spaces. So you could use a Q-tip for this, and I'm just going over everything and making sure to kind of wipe off the pencil after I switch to the different colors. And I'm just taking my kneaded eraser and going over and kind of picking up the stuff that it left behind. Now I'm taking my Micron liner and kind of make sure it works. You just gotta do it, you know? Sometimes it just doesn't. These kind of die out after a while, so you're gonna have to have a few on hand. But basically what I'm doing is I'm doing thin strokes with this, and then I kind of put them near each other, and then I kind of thicken it all into one lash. So I don't want to go too bold, but if you're confident with your lines, you can go bold, you can go right, you can do this all in one line if you want. And if you have a thicker liner, that's cool too. So I'm just doing with all the lashes, and I'm just going over where I put the marker. And if you want, you can add a few little, I guess you could call them flyaway lashes, just kind of ones that stand out from the breast. They're just pretty thin. Alright. Now this is the eye, and we're gonna go in the creases again with a darker shade. Whatever you're using, I'm kind of going gray toned on the skin, so I'm just using black. And I'm just defining those creases. And I'm taking my colorless blender and blending that in. And again, if you don't have this, you can just use a Q-tip or your finger or a Kleenex or whatever you want. Just anything that you think would work. Because it's just art, and if you mess up, it's beautiful. If you like hard lines, also you don't have to blend. So this is the eye without highlights. We're doing highlights next, don't worry. Looks a little lifeless, so I'm taking my Jelly Roll pen. It's in white, of course, and it's the 05. And so we're just going to use this on top of where we want highlights to make it look glossy and give it life. And this is a really nice pen. It works on a lot of surfaces because it's gel. This really doesn't work with colored pencil if you try, because it'll kind of just blend things. And so I'm just adding little highlights in the eyes. I'm getting kind of irritated during this because sometimes if you press too hard, the color doesn't lay on, or the pigment, I mean. And so it takes a little bit of work, and you gotta be light with it, so then the gel flows out of it nicely. Now I'm just kind of putting it on in the creases and stuff to kind of make it look a little glossy. I think it looks quite nice like this, so it really pops. And you can put highlights anywhere you want. You can do whatever you want. So here's the finished eye, and thank you for watching.